Hello. Thank you for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's coverage of primary elections 2026. My name is Christine Lott. This program is part of a series of candidate forums hosted by Town Meeting TV in advance of the primary election on Tuesday, August 11th, 2026. These forums are made possible by Town Meeting TV's generous underwriting partners. You can find all our forums at cttv.org/primary or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel, where auto-generated captions are available. If you're tuning in on YouTube, click the subscribe button to stay tuned into local democracy this election season. And thank you for your patience. Apologize for our late start. There was some traffic in the area that held up some of our guests this evening. On tonight's program, we will hear from two candidates running for the Chittenden County State's Attorney. These candidates are Sarah George and Bran Kronigfeld. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So we've prepared a list of questions for each of you. You'll have 90 seconds to answer each question. Rebuttals will only be allowed if a candidate is named directly, in which case you'll have 30 seconds to respond. If you're tuning in live, we also welcome your questions at 802-862-3966. I know we have a few callers in the queue already. We're going to jump into those after we do opening remarks. If you call in, we will do our best to prioritize your question, though we'll screen calls to ensure questions are not repeated. We'll ask that you share your name, the town you live in, and that your question be directed at all candidates, not just one. Let's get started with 1-minute opening statements, and we'll start with Bran Kronigfeld. Bran,
Thank you.
Apologies.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Bran Kronigfeld, and thank you for having us. Thanks for your time. I'm running for Chittenden County State's Attorney because I believe that we can get better outcomes from our criminal justice system. I've been a prosecutor in Vermont for about 20 years now. I've lived in Burlington for 20 years. And I have some pretty strong feelings about how to approach the job of being a state's attorney. First of all, I think that above all things, a state's attorney represents the community, and that means the whole community, which means empathizing not just with the people who are directly involved in a case, but empathizing with everyone who is impacted by crime in the community. I also believe that any state's attorney in Vermont right now, and particularly in Chittenden County, should be focused on addressing the drug crisis that is currently afflicting our state. And part of that means using all the tools available to us as prosecutors, and part of it also means leaning into the system as an escalator and not a revolving door. So we have this opportunity for change, and I hope that we can move into a brighter future on August 11th.
Thank you so much. Sarah George.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Sarah George. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Chittenden County State's Attorney. I've been a prosecutor in Chittenden County for 15 years and the elected state's attorney for 9.5. I've implemented policies and practices that highlight the inherent disparities in our legal system and have sought to make our arrests, our prosecutions, and our sentences more fair. I partner greatly with law enforcement and local nonprofits in order to hold people accountable while also keeping them in our community and connecting them directly with services. And we have a lot more work to do, but we are trending in the right direction. And we have reduced harm in our community while keeping people in our community whenever possible. I look forward to continuing this work. I look forward to your support in this work, and I look forward to our discussion tonight.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So we're going to jump to the phones first off. They're on?
You're on, yep.
All right, you're on. Please introduce yourself and ask your question. It is not working.
They're pressing call. They're pressing call.
Hello?
Nope. I think they're pressing.
Apologies.
They're pressing call. It's not getting anything done.
Well, why don't we start with a question while we get this technical issue resolved, and then we'll move back to the phones. We're going to start with our first question about court backlogs and priorities. So last fall, Governor Scott launched the Chittenden County Community Accountability Court. a temporary surge of resources that focused on repeat offenders with multiple open cases. By early 2026, it had resolved the bulk of the backlog and wound down. What do you think needs to be done to make sure people are being tried in a timely manner and the most important cases are being prioritized? And we'll start with you, Sarah George.
Sure, absolutely. So the governor's program, Accountability Court, that came to Chittenden County allowed us to move all of those cases of repeat offenders, which were mostly nonviolent misdemeanors, into an entirely different courtroom with a different prosecutor, a different judge, so that we could prioritize in the other courtrooms our violent crime, our homicide cases, and our gunfire incidents. We were able to go to trial on most of those and resolve those. As we were doing that, we were unable otherwise to address these other cases. So what we've done since then, the governor took that program and he moved it down to Rutland, who needed the same help, and then down to Brattleboro, which is about to start shortly. We have continued it in Chittenden County now that we have sort of our heads above water, and we bring in any sort of repeat offender cases every Friday. We're also working closely with law enforcement to make sure that we get those cases from law enforcement quickly, and that people are being brought in regularly. And when we get them in court quickly and we give them court dates that are really close together, like every single Friday, we have found that they show up. And then we also have Howard Center in the courtroom with us, connecting people directly to services. So we are seeing a significant increase in the number of cases where we can resolve quicker, which I think is a huge part of holding people accountable, is getting to that closure soon.
That's great, thank you. Bram Cronenfeld?
Thank you. You know, as a resident of Chittenden County, I am extremely grateful to the governor for lending us the resources for that court. I think it did a great thing in addressing the backlog, or some of the backlog in Chittenden County. But you know, I have another word for accountability court, and it's called court. And from the very beginning of the announcement of that court, you know, coming to Chittenden County, my question has been, what is it that accountability court could do that the existing 13 state's attorneys, deputy state's attorneys that we pay for with our taxpayer dollars in Chittenden County could not do in Chittenden County? And the only answer that I could come up with is that because the prosecutor in accountability court does not work for my opponent, but work for the governor, that prosecutor could ask for bail, which is the only tool that we have in Vermont to ensure that people show up in court. You look at the accountability court cases, you can see a pattern of people not showing up until they get into the accountability court, at which point they suddenly show up and their cases are resolved. So, you know, I think at best the accountability court was a temporary solution to a problem largely generated by my opponent's policies in the Chittenden County office. And although I'm grateful that it was there, and I think that it did good work and it cleared a lot of cases, it's not going to turn out to be a long-term solution.
Thank you. Would you like a rebuttal?
I would. I think it's important, despite what my opponent is saying, to reiterate again that the governor has moved this program, this model, to Rutland County and now to Windham County, both counties in which those state's attorneys do not have a bail policy like I do. It's actually just factually inaccurate that that's why the court worked. The reason the accountability court worked was because it had dedicated resources, and more importantly, Howard Center was in the courtroom with people, connecting them to services, which is what we're still doing.
Thank you. We've got our issues sorted out. We're able to jump to the phones now, so I'm going to start with our first caller. Hello, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hello?
Hi, you're on live.
Hello? Yeah.
Please go ahead and introduce yourself and ask your question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Ed Baker. I'm a resident of Burlington. Thank you both for being available to your constituency. Here's my question. Vermont spends more than $95,000 per year to incarcerate just one person. Vermont prisons are at maximum capacity, forcing the state to send individuals to private prisons in Mississippi. Some of these individuals are incarcerated for low-level felony drug possession charges. Do you believe this is an effective use of taxpayer dollars? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Bram, you first.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think it's a tremendous problem that Vermont is sending prisoners away from Vermont. It's terrible for our communities. It's terrible for any kind of restorative justice programming that might be available, either incarcerative, in a carcerative sense, or in like a furlough or parole situation. So that's not good. And I also would say that the Department of Corrections in the last, 10 or 20 years has stopped offering as much programming as it used to, and as many tools that we could use as prosecutors to craft sentences that made sense in an individual case. I'm a outcome-based kind of prosecutor. I think that we absolutely in every case need to look at what are the outcomes of the sentences that we're crafting for the best possible outcome for the community. And a big part of that is, what is Department of Corrections doing? What kind of programming are they offering? And what kind of sentence structures can we put in place to ensure that we are getting people the help they need when they need it in the right situation, but also holding people accountable for criminal behavior and making sure that we get the best outcomes for our communities.
Thank you. Sarah.
So I think Ed's question was whether I think it's a good use of our resources. My answer is no, absolutely not. We spend $312 a day to incarcerate somebody. If we are spending that money to incarcerate somebody on a nonviolent misdemeanor, I think that's not only economically a terrible decision, but it's also incredibly harmful to our community. People who go to jail for nonviolent offenses are significantly more likely to commit violence when they are re-released into our communities because of what the situations they're exposed to when they're incarcerated. So it actually, not only is it fiscally irresponsible, but it actually makes us all less safe if we put people in jail for nonviolent offenses. I would also say that people who are struggling with substance use and who are incarcerated are at significantly higher likelihood of fatal overdoses when they are released, because they are not getting treatment, adequate treatment when they're in jail. They come back out to the same circumstances that we put them in there from without connecting them directly to any services, and their likelihood of fatal overdose is significantly higher. So I think it's fiscally irresponsible, it's morally irresponsible, and I do not support it under really any circumstances.
Thank you. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, this is Joanne Jaskat. I'm in Burlington, Vermont. I just had a question and observation. I was just seeing that and learning that nonprofits in downtown Burlington are spending a lot of money, like hundreds of thousands a year on security. King Street Youth Center is. I know that City Market is spending an exorbitant amount on security. And they didn't spend that a few years ago. And I'm just wondering what can be done to improve the climate downtown so that we can make sure that these nonprofits are spending money on programming.
Thank you so much. Sarah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, and it's a really unfortunate problem, because when nonprofits are spending that kind of money on security, they're, like the caller said, unable to spend that money on direct services, especially at places like King Street Center, where those services are so important for our community and for the youth of our community. I think that for Burlington in particular, a lot of the concern and need for security is based on the Burlington Police Department's inability to respond to some of these incidents quickly. And I know that that's something Chief Burke takes very seriously and is working on, but they just don't always have the staff to be responding to these incidents as quickly as they need to. The greatest deterrent of this behavior is police response happening quickly, and if that's not happening quickly, then the behavior is not being deterred. So I think that the biggest thing we need to figure out is how to get Burlington Police Department adequately staffed so that they can respond timely to all of these incidents around the community that will hopefully negate that need for those places to have their own security.
Thank you. Bram?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in our community are asking themselves if they are safer than they were 9 years ago. And, And I think this question hits squarely on that issue, that we are largely not. You know, if you look at the FBI data, it indisputably shows that since 2016 in Chittenden County, crime is up in almost every category, in some categories as much as 300%. And I've spoken to countless people in our community that are experiencing or observing a higher rate of criminal behavior. I've spoken to nonprofits who have told me that they're spending upwards of $200,000 a year on security, that they are not spending on services anymore. I've spoken to people in the New American community who are horrified that their kids are being exposed to drug trafficking, to business owners who are talking about thousands of retail thefts, all these things not having are only in the last few years. Were not happening 9 years ago. It's not just a police issue, although that is part of the problem. It's also a problem if the state's attorney's office policies are not pursuing or following up on the cases after the police investigate and report them. Just for example, the no cash bail policy of the Chittenden County State's Attorney's Office means that there's no meaningful consequence for not showing up in court. There's also the policy of not pursuing criminal charges for civil traffic stops. I would suggest that if the State's Attorney's Office isn't pursuing these things, that there's no deterrent effect on this behavior.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that? Yes, please. So I just want to highlight again the comment that these things weren't happening, or these things are, from a few years ago, and something else pretty significant happened in our world a few years ago that decimated our housing, decimated our health care and our affordable health care, decimated our livable wages. And those things have impacted every community in Vermont, and including crime, including property crime. So blaming a policy of my office for something that is happening and impacting the entire state, I feel like is disingenuous.
Thank you. Let's go to our next caller. Hi, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi there. My name is Andara, and I'm calling from Burlington. And my question is, compared to what it was like 5 or 6 years ago, downtown Burlington has changed significantly. One difference I have observed is a lot of brazen open drug use of hard drugs, like smoking meth or injecting presumably fentanyl. This isn't okay for our children to see. Downtown belongs to them just as much as everyone else. Are you okay with this?
Thank you very much. We'll start with you, Bram.
Sure. I mean, the answer is no. I mean, I'm not okay with it. I'll say in general terms that I believe that let me preface this all by saying that yes, I mean, I've talked to many people who've observed the same behavior on a daily basis. I've talked to people in the recovery community, for example, who describe open-air drug markets in downtown Burlington that are a tremendous obstacle to people in recovery receiving treatment. And yeah, I mean, our children are seeing things on a regular basis now in Burlington that would have been unconscionable 9 years ago. I 100% believe that as a state's attorney, we need to leverage the system as much as we possibly can to meet people where they are and try to get them help that they need, and try to get them the tools that they need to deal with their underlying issues. But to be clear, if we get to a place where it's clear to us that somebody is not accepting treatment, then we have to be honest with ourselves that it's time to try a new approach, an approach that might be more focused on deterrence. Open selling of hard drugs and frankly, even just the use of hard drugs is a crime in Vermont. Our legislatures define it as a crime, and it's our job as state's attorneys and our responsibility to address that.
Thank you. Sarah.
Well, I certainly agree that it is not acceptable, that it is not okay. I work downtown. I walk through City Hall Park and down Church Street every day. I see it. I understand the frustration in seeing it. I think the difference is, from my perspective, one, those aren't cases. When you see somebody who's using drugs in City Hall Park, those are not cases that law enforcement is sending to our office. One, because they're actually difficult to prove. Like, I understand it might seem like seeing somebody using drugs is an easy case, but it's actually not. It's a lot more complicated than that. Drug sale cases require a confidential informant and recording, and it's a very high burden for the state. So those aren't cases that are coming to our office from law enforcement. And if people would like them to be coming to our office, then I think that's something that they need to discuss with the mayor and the Burlington Police Department. But right now, that's not happening. And if they do come to our office, then we'll treat them like any other nonviolent offense, and we will charge them. We will attempt to connect them to services and hold them accountable by meeting their basic needs, and doing our best to keep them in the community, better members of our community.
Thank you both. We've got another caller. Hi, please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Corrine Leventhal, and I'm from Shelburne. And my question today is, what more can be done to address drug trafficking in our communities?
Thank you very much. We'll start with you, Sarah George.
Yeah, drug trafficking in general has been, since the beginning of the war on drugs, has been an uphill battle. It has been a game, frankly, of whack-a-mole. Our law enforcement spends so much time and resources investigating these cases, bringing us really good cases, doing a lot of wire warrants and search warrants, and working with us diligently to get these arrests. We work really closely with our federal partners to bring charges and have them take them over if they have better resources for it, which is usually the case. And then somebody else pops up. This is a never-ending situation that we have been dealing with for 100 years, and we'll continue to deal with it as long as there is a demand for drugs in our communities. I think that the more we can focus on getting people that are in our communities using drugs the help they need, the housing they need, the services that they need to stay in long-term recovery, the less we will need drugs from other areas, and that is the only way ultimately that we're going to solve that problem.
Thank you. Bram Cronenfeld.
Thank you. I view drug trafficking as, I think, the number one priority and the number one biggest problem that we're dealing with in Chittenden County, because it fuels so much of the other crime that we have. It's drug traffickers pumping poison into our communities that drives so much of the property crime that we're experiencing in Chittenden County, and frankly so much of the violent crime that we're experiencing across the state, including in Chittenden County. Drug trafficking leads to violence. So as state's attorney, as the Franklin County State's Attorney, is one of my priorities, and as Chittenden County State's Attorney would be my priority. To address it, first of all, I fully agree with my opponent that working with our law enforcement partners, particularly the Drug Task Force, is a tremendously important part of addressing drug trafficking, and having a good working relationship with the police is important. But I'd also suggest that asking for cash bail for drug traffickers so that there's a consequence for them not showing up in court is a tool that we should be using to address it. And drug interdiction, which is a practice of police to address drug trafficking, is made almost impossible with my opponent's policy of not pursuing criminal charges from civil traffic stops. So I would revisit that, because I think that's another important tool in addressing drug trafficking.
Sarah, would you like a rebuttal?
Yes, please. So again, that is not accurate. In Chittenden County, first of all, a significant number of our violent crime is actually not fueled by drugs. I know that is happening in other counties. I talk to my counterparts around the state. That is not the majority of our violence that is occurring here. But aside from that, when we do get these cases and people are charged with drug trafficking related offenses, our courts are occasionally imposing cash bail. And those individuals are posting cash bail because they have access to money, which is the reason that cash bail doesn't actually keep us safe, because people with access to money can post it. Just really briefly on the non-public safety policy, that is not true. Cops can still search cars, and they can still take the drugs, and they can still send us cases, and we will still get warrants. if that is the understanding of the policy, I would ask my opponent to read it because that is not what it says.
Thank you. We're very limited. I want to take one more caller. You'll each have about 60 seconds to respond to this one. Hi, please. Oh, we're done? We're done? Okay. Well, we can do closing statements then as we're approaching the end of our time together. Bram, I'm going to start with you.
All right. As I mentioned before, I think a lot of people in Chittenden County are asking themselves whether we are safer than we were 9 years ago. And I think that many of us feel we can get better outcomes from our criminal justice system. There's never been a problem that was solved by pretending it didn't exist. There's never been a problem that was solved by putting our heads in the sand and acting like it was going to pass us by. And there's never been a problem that was solved by doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. We have this opportunity for a change, and I hope that we can move together into a brighter future on August 11th.
Thank you. And Sarah George.
Thank you. Since I've been the state's attorney, we have made incredible progress in our community to build a justice system that is based on facts, that is based on evidence and research and data, and not based on fear. I've done that through significant collaboration with nonprofits, significant collaboration with our judiciary and our law enforcement partners. We have eliminated our backlog. We have brought in a domestic violence investigator into our office to strengthen those cases and get better outcomes for victims. We have implemented policies that work towards arrest, prosecution, and incarceration in ways that are based on evidence and research and not based on the same tools that we have attempted to use for 200 years that have been proven not to work. I believe that we have a lot of work to do, but I think that we are trending in the right direction and that we should not go backwards. And I am asking for your vote on August 11th to continue to move us forward to a system that is more fair for everyone.
All right, thank you both so much. Thank you for tuning into Town Meeting TV's ongoing coverage of local candidates, budgets, and ballot items. You can find this and many more forums at cctv.org/primary or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. Don't forget to cast your ballot on Town Meeting Day on or before August 11th. Then tune into Town Meeting TV's primary results recap show the following day on August 12th at 4 p.m. to hear about election results. Contact your local clerk to find out how to obtain a ballot and to register to vote. In Vermont, you can register to vote all the way up to and on Election Day. Thank you for watching and sharing Town Meeting TV.